It is now December 11th. We are just 9 days away from the official release of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker by writer and director J.J. Abrams and Chris Terrio, as well as creator George Lucas. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, one thing about Episode 9 is that a lot of fans are very worried about this movie, very much on edge with exactly how things are really going to turn out to be by J.J. Abrams and how he's going to end the entire Skywalker saga that started back in 1977. This really is a big deal for a lot of fans around the world because this is Star Wars. At heart, we are Star Wars fans and we only want the best for Star Wars. And so far, from the way things are sounding, things really aren't looking too bright because of Kathleen Kennedy, the head of Lucasfilm, the head of all things Star Wars when it comes to Disney Plus and the actual feature films out there. Now, on top of all of this, like I say, we got the premiere over in Japan today on the 11th. We got another premiere on the 16th over in Los Angeles. So it's not that far off until we get new reactions of this movie and get a better idea of what the critics think about Episode 9. Now, with that being said, what's really unfortunate has all to do with Kathleen Kennedy's involvement in The Rise of Skywalker, where it's explained that through many of the changes and adjustments of the film during the months of August, September, and October, it said that many of these changes were done by Kathleen Kennedy in order to provide a different tone for the film and to have the film cater to a general audience. It said that one of the segments of the film that were deleted from the film was a sequence featuring the role of Anakin Skywalker portrayed by Hayden Christensen at the end of the film when helping Rey. It said that the scene was partially shot before Disney and Kathleen Kennedy decided to delete the segment in order to focus more on the character of Rey. Additionally, it said that it was Kathleen Kennedy's idea to make Rey the chosen one and to have her defeat Palpatine, and that when George Lucas was involved with the film, this was never a part of the plan. One of the other segments that Kathleen Kennedy allowed was by reducing Luke Skywalker's screen time to only 10 minutes long, and Palpatine's screen time down to only 12 minutes in total, and that Palpatine dies by the hands of Rey in a matter of seconds at the end of the movie. Now, through all of the changes made by Kathleen Kennedy and Disney, it's explained that 30% of the film had been completely reshot, and is said to be the main reason as to why the novelization and the art book of The Rise of Skywalker is not being released until sometime in 2020. Now, the reshoots were said to have upped the budget of the film, putting them at risk of them doing poorly at the box office in the film, and in how it does not resonate with fans, and that many of those scenes that were deleted included the scenes that George Lucas created for the movie. So let's go over a couple of parts about this and as to why this is a recipe for disaster when it comes to Kathleen Kennedy once again. Now, like I've always said before with The Last Jedi, she made a terrible mistake with that movie, and I'll go into that a little bit more later. But with The Rise of Skywalker, it seems like that she is making the same exact mistakes once again, not delivering to fans, and not really paying much attention to what the fans really just want to see in the final installment of the Skywalker saga and what could have really been. Now, let's go over a couple of things about this as to why it's going to bother some fans out there. One of which being the Anakin Skywalker scene that was deleted at the very end of Episode 9, where Anakin was going to appear in physical form as a Force ghost helping Rey as she fights Sidious. Now, this was originally a part of the plan and was even partially shot until the reshoots began during those months that we just listed, and that was actually lost. It was deleted because it did not fit the overall structure of the new plot of the movie, and that they wanted to focus more so on the character of Rey and give her the limelight that she deserves. Now, the whole entire idea of Rey becoming the chosen one and her destroying Palpatine once and for all, and her taking the name Skywalker, is said to be a decision all made by Kathleen Kennedy. This is all Kennedy at the end of the day, the head of all things Star Wars and the head of Lucasfilm. So, with that being said, the other big mistake here by Kathleen Kennedy that also spells a recipe here for disaster is that, of course, the reshoots. Now, the reshoots were actually said to add up to 30% of the actual film being reshot during those 3 months of restructuring the plot of Episode 9. Now, this not only led to the cancellation of the main new villain portrayed by Matt Smith called the Dark Acolyte, who originally was going to be controlled by the spirit of Sidious. But it's not just that. It's also the fact that, along with that, many of George Lucas's scenes that he actually directed and wrote for the movie were lost in the process, and that Kathleen Kennedy reduced Palpatine's screen time and Luke Skywalker's screen time both down to both 10 and 12 minutes long. Now, that's the problem that I think a lot of fans have so far with The Rise of Skywalker, is that you have a lot of these changes, and in comparison to what was done in the initial cut of the movie, the initial cut of Episode 9, I will be honest, it sounded far superior than what we are getting right now by Disney and Lucasfilm that's due for release in just 9 to 8 days. And that's going to be a very interesting thing to see exactly how the fans will react to The Rise of Skywalker and how fans are really going to look at Episode 9. So, moving on forward, what do I think about Kathleen Kennedy? Well, first things first, Kathleen Kennedy needs to be replaced as head of Lucasfilm. There's no denying that, and I'm sure a lot of you out there will agree with me on that. You know, Kathleen Kennedy, I think, has done a poor job at leadership, and she really needs to be replaced by somebody that is either a true Star Wars fan or just understands the fans in general, I think is what we really need right now. The fact that, Lucas did make a mistake by allowing Kennedy to take over Lucasfilm. One could technically argue that this was George Lucas's fault, but I really can't say that because George Lucas and his judgment probably really wasn't all there at the time. He just wanted anybody, to take over his franchise and to take care of his baby. And he always calls it his baby, right? His baby is his Star Wars movies that he created back in 1977 and on forward. And even Kathleen Kennedy, you guys may recall that in that interview, she even promised to George Lucas that she would take care of these characters, that they would not be altered in a negative way. And it seems like that is exactly what she is doing. That's exactly what she's doing with the sequel trilogy. By giving Rey the Chosen One title and completely disregarding Anakin Skywalker, and by literally putting Luke Skywalker and Palpatine to the wayside in Episode 9, and the fact that Palpatine never really died, that really doesn't really respect the very ending of Return of the Jedi, at least in my opinion. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree, but that's just my opinion on things, is that by allowing Palpatine to come back into physical form, even if there is some kind of trickery behind it, it still kind of just weakens the sacrifice of Anakin Skywalker at the very end of Return of the Jedi, because you know that Palpatine is going to come back in Episode 9. That's going to be in our minds forever. Now, of course, one could always look at the sequel trilogy as not canon, but at the end of the day, they still do exist, and we know they exist, and that's the big issue here for many fans around the world. So, with that being said, Kathleen Kennedy is really the problem. I think that is the main reason as to why there has been a lot of inconsistencies within the sequel trilogy and a lot of problems, with the creatives coming on board, a lot of firings, a lot of people leaving projects. We see this happening time to time, ever since The Force Awakens. The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, Solo, Rogue One, Episode 9, even the new Star Wars trilogy of all things. A lot of people left these projects, or a lot of people were fired from these projects because of creative differences, because Kathleen Kennedy wanted her own narrative for specific projects. So this movie, like I say, I'm still curious about it, obviously, but based on a lot of these decisions, things really aren't looking too bright. The thing that I'm not really all too excited about is the fact that they are increasing the amount of comedy that will be displayed in this movie. That's another thing done by Kathleen Kennedy, by the way, is that this movie will have an increase in comedy in comparison to that of The Last Jedi. And they've been showing this in the teasers and in the TV spots and stuff around those lines, like they fly now. It just really does not match Star Wars, at least in my opinion. So, the last thing I just want to say here is I would like to hear what each and every one of you have to say about Kathleen Kennedy and her involvement with Star Wars and Lucasfilm. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.